And here we go. Another recording in progress. The lady just was on. We got the notification and we're off and running and thundering from the gate. Glad you joined us, everybody, on this WPT in 30. This is a Wednesday edition here as we speed towards the end of the Gulfstream Park meeting. Of course, Easter weekend, major Triple Crown preps, or maybe the right way to say it, guys, and it's Jason Blewitt, Joe Bianca, and Tommy Murphy joining you. There's a very key Triple Crown prep this weekend in NOLA, and there's also a synthetic race that, who knows, may yield a couple of nice turf horses down the road. Checking in with you, Joe, off the bat, things are really rolling along here in WPT Nation. We're just, of course, coming out of a very successful March sale.
Yeah, really nice half dozen that we picked up at the 2-year-old sale, 3 colts, 3 fillies. We got 4 who are sold out right now, including the big Tappet that we all had our eyes on and fell in love with back at the barns. But we got 2 really nice horses with some availability still. The Cajun Breeze colt was going to John Sadler, got a star rating from David and Gordo, probably one of the best athletes in the sale. Would have gone for a lot more, I think, if he were by a more commercial mainstream sire. And then if this spun to run filly who's going to Dallas Stewart, Jay, you and I went back and saw her as well. She's a big leggy girl, I think, with a lot of forward movement to go. I think she's probably more of a 2-turn type, but she had a real smooth breeze and, just a lot of scope out of a quality road dam. So I think there's a lot to like from both. The Cajun Breeze is a little higher price point, so a little variation from the pricing standpoint as well. But yeah, a lot to like from both of them, and I expect them probably to be gone by the end of the week.
And a big thank you, of course, to our partners. I mean, West Point wouldn't exist without, of course, the horses, and it's all about the horses, and they literally give us everything. But partners, it's a wonderful group of people. I usually, guys, when I'm on the phone with a prospective partner, and we've welcomed over a dozen new partners to the family coming out of the OBS March sale. So that's amazing. That's beautiful. And thank you to everybody that has bought one of these new 2-year-olds. But, Tommy, along the lines of that, I mean, we've got about a leg remaining, about 25% remaining on both the Cajun Breeze colt and the Spun to Run filly. So if you're thinking about getting in, and the two of them are like as athletic as it gets, time is not on your side. Definitely reach out and contact one of us, contact your rep, or give Ali Finley a shout.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember, I think we bought the Spun to Run a handful of hips right after we bought the Promises Fulfilled colt. So I didn't see that horse go through the ring, kind of caught me off guard. And then us three went back there to look at her, and I was like, whoa,
Yep.
Look at this. And I couldn't believe we got her for the price we got her for. And I really think it helps that, we got our first crop stallion, 2-year-old here. And we bought a few of those, which I really like, because a lot of times if, and one of these stallions, they take off, have a great year or two, this same kind of horse in the stale down the road after that stallion's had 1 or 2 crops at the racetrack, do really well. We're not going to be able to find them for that price. So I think big shout out to our bloodstock agent, David Gordo, for finding these horses for us and getting them to great price. And I can't wait to see this one up here at Churchill Downs with Dallas Stewart here soon.
She's got a really, really intelligent eye and look. That was, aside from just her scopiness and that legginess that Joe was just talking about, when we went back and welcomed her with some hugs and kisses and some pats on the head when we did our back at the barn segment, I was just really, I know it sounds a little silly maybe in some respects, but I was really like caught off guard. I don't know. She's got just like this really special vibe around her, looking at her in the eye. Speaking of special, gang, we could not start this podcast, and it was a good weekend. We had a big effort out of Juan Valdez down at Gulfstream Park, but I mean, you guys are looking at the race now as we pick up the incredible, and as I said, first ballot West Point Hall of Famer and Jaxon Traveler. He's sitting in that sort of catbird stalking spot. And I mean, how amazing was this race on Saturday with him winning the Whitmore at Oakland Park?
I talked about it on Rail Talk the other day, and this is the kind of horse that I would love regardless of who he raced for, just because he's got that stalwart quality of him where he just shows up year after year after year. But obviously, I'm doubly attached to him being a part of the West Point family. And this was a great ride, too. I thought Flavien Prat, at first I thought he moved a little bit early, but I think in the end he did just enough to get the jump on Tejano Twist. And those two, you could see the margin here coming down to the wire. What an exciting race. And yeah, Jaxon is everything you want in a racehorse. He was only $140,000 OBS April buy, and he's just stakes winner at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There aren't that many horses in the game who run that long period at this level, but also are stakes winners 5 straight seasons. He's just unbelievable. And the partners understandably love the hell out of him. And yeah, what great training job. And man, what else can you say? He's the goods, man.
He really is the goods. I hate pausing that video, but I wanted to just really fast just go back. And Joe was saying what a stalwart this horse has been. I'm a form guy, but I don't care what set of past performances. I'm a DRF guy, but regardless of the PPs, getting to like peruse and just really study. And there's a lot of great memories. I mean, that's one of the big things about going through like a horse that you love, their lifetime PPs. One of the reasons I love the Daily Racing Forms, a Champions book. That is something, if you're watching this podcast and you're a West Point partner and you have never heard of Champions or you've never seen it, it's got the lifetime PPs of pretty much every champion from the early 1900s. I mean, well over a century through modern times. So there's definitely like a warm fuzziness I get from just being able to go through a horse that I love race by race. And I mean, Tommy, does it get any? Dude, look at this horse, man. Maryland bred by Munnings. Amazing.
And I've one race with him. I know he didn't win it, but it's just I always will remember it. Is his quick call back in Saratoga in what was that, July 21? Obviously, the race is won by Golden Pal, who's now gone off to stud duties, and just his second career. And we still have Jaxon here winning grade threes, and it's so cool to go back and look at all these races, look at some of the names that he's run against. And I think this Whitmore, his Whitmore win really kind of stamps him as a contender in this kind of order sprint category around the country. I selfishly hope to see him at Churchill, maybe running against some of these same horses that we saw in the Whitmore. But I mean, what a cool horse! I mean, every time he runs his heart eyeballs out every time. He's just all heart, and what more can you ask for?
No, you can't ask anything more of Jaxon Traveler. And kudos to, again, Steve Asmussen and his team for keeping Jaxon in great shape. I mean, that's an understatement, but being able to bring this guy over at such a high level, campaign after campaign after campaign, not sure what's next. I mean, seeing him run in Kentucky during the springtime would be awesome, but he's also potentially, who knows, maybe has a Maryland Sprint in his future on the Preakness undercard. He won it 2 years ago, and that's the one thing I was thinking about. I'm like, man, like I remember, sitting at my desk watching him on TV win on Preakness Day, that Preakness undercard in May of 22, and here it is. It's March of 24, and he just won another grade 3 $250,000 stake. Amazing horse. Great job, Jaxon Traveler, and congrats to everybody associated with him. We will move ahead, gang. There's a lot to talk about. I don't even know really where to start. I think probably the easiest way to do it, and the way that makes most sense, is we'll just go in essentially chronological order. And for West Point Nation, the racing action this week kicks off on Thursday evening, and it's an early race. Good. Guys, I'm an old soul. You probably know that. I like a 7:55 Eastern post time as opposed to maybe running towards 11 p.m. Not that I wouldn't have stayed up and checked out Sands of War, but earlier the better for this Jason Blewitt. I saw Joe, and not that it really matters. If I was making a list of things that mattered to me most looking at Sands of War, And in regards to her return race, February 11th at Gulfstream, the speed figure, or at least the buyer figure, would probably be down towards the bottom. But I remember thinking when they released it, it was in like the mid 60s, and that just seemed utterly slow and pretty much impossible. And I see it's been raised to a 74, and she's switching to the synthetic tomorrow night in Kentucky, in Florence, Kentucky. But given her pedigree and that solid return, my friend, I got high hopes for this filly that she's going to take a big step forward.
This actually, her figure was originally a 58. So
oh my goodness,
they bumped it way up, and I couldn't believe it at the time that number could be legit. So you don't often see them adjust buyer figures that much, but they popped it up 16 points to 74. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I didn't really care just in terms of evaluating how well she ran, what the figure was. It was obvious that she ran a monster race. I'm just a little salty for a personal reason because she's going to be a much shorter price now. I think we would have gotten a decent number on her if she had that 58. I think that 74 is going to stick out like a sore thumb in this field, and she'll probably be favored. But yeah, I mean, she ran her eyeballs out that day, and didn't get away all that well. Had a big time close in a race that nobody else closed in. It stuck together on the front end for the most part, and was unlucky to lose, just beating a neck in third. And yeah, she's just one of those horses that I think you give her the time off, it ends up being a blessing in disguise. She just had that one run at Saratoga, which was a disaster, obviously, but she was able to come along at her own pace. And yeah, especially of the cadet filly, she's one of my favorites, and she just kind of towers over this field now. Obviously, she's got to be able to race over the synthetic. That's no guarantee. But if she brings the kind of form that she brought last time on this track, I think she's going to be very tough to beat, and we're going to be looking at a stakes filly going forward.
I hope so. I mean, that pedigree is really to die for there, with her, of course, being out of a half sister to justify by the late Pioneer of the Nile. Let's fast forward, gang, and the weekend really starts to ramp up starting on Friday. And in terms of an earlier post, well, it's race 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We have the long, maybe not long awaited, but certainly a long anticipated debut of Metro, who was the sales topping Keeneland September of 2022 yearling. He was the sale topping yearling. Cost a lot of money. I feel like, Tommy, I get the vibe just from the updates that have gone out each and every Thursday, and you talk about a lengthy work tab. It feels like John Sadler has left no stone unturned as far as like the string of breezes going back and predating, Christmas. But I kind of get the vibe he just wants to get a race under this horse, and then we'll literally be off and running with Metro.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned it before with Sadler. We see him do this a lot with some of his horses, a lot of good work pattern on with these horses, and then just get a race under their belt, just get them some experience, get them around, 6 horses I think are in this race. So give them a pack, give them a feel for a race. And well, I'd said this, I'm pretty sure we might have said the same thing about Scatified before his first race, and then he blows up the top board 9-1 and goes out, wins on debut. So you never know. Obviously, expectations, sky high for this horse. And let's get this one under his belt. Maybe he surprises us here, but I think, like you said, this is a great starting point for him, get a little experience, and then be able to hopefully start an awesome career with him.
I'm glad you mentioned Scatify, Tommy. Big work. I had a few partners that are in on him texting me over the weekend. He came back, and it was like a day when close to or just under 150 horses breezed a half mile out at Santa Anita. I think, if memory serves, he was third fastest, which I don't really care about the ranking. The point is, I mean, he worked really fast. He worked really sharp. And look, 2 weeks on the nose, essentially, Joe, after his last race, where in a 4-horse field, I mean, he literally got mugged into the first turn. We were all relieved and happy that he was okay physically. And we don't know what's next. Personally, for me, and I'm curious your take. In fact, if he was yours and you were in charge, what would you do, or what would you be leaning? None of this stuff is set in stone, and we're of course not in charge, but it's fun to maybe plot in your own mind, if you were in control, what you would do with a horse. I mean, where would you potentially go with Scatify off that big half mile work?
Let me put my fantasy horse owner hat on here. And I honestly, if he's good mentally, physically, I would draw a line through that last race and put him in the Santa Anita Derby. And I'm not no pressure on it. If he runs okay, I wouldn't feel compelled to send him to the Kentucky Derby. But it seems like he's bounced out of that race as well as you could possibly do, especially considering the mugging you said that he took going into that first turn. So yeah, I'm inclined to give him one more shot on the Derby trail. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. We got a nice 3-year-old for the summer races still. But yeah, I'm willing to give him another chance, hopefully with a clean trip, and see if he can, if he can force his way into the Derby field.
He's very fast. He's very good. I lean a little more on the conservative side. And again, I have not looked at the condition book. I don't know what's out there in my mind. And maybe this is dating back to immediately after the race, once we found out he was okay. It's oh, maybe you take a step back, try to find an A other than out there for 3-year-olds, and then hopefully springboard and use that as basically a jumping off point back into stakes. But again, it's nice having these conversations. John Sadler and his team will ultimately make what they feel is the best decision where we go next. And again, we're just happy he's okay. And good luck to Metro. Really excited to get his career underway. We are going, guys, to cover, and everybody listening, a lot of mileage here on this WPT and 30 podcast, because we go from the West Coast out in Arcadia, California, all the way over to Hot Springs, and we're going to make a little Friday pit stop for race number 7 at Oaklawn Park, where Tommy, we welcome back off a near 7-month layoff, Speaking of the Devil, who had a very solid, but also pretty colorful Saratoga with a couple of voided claims. We don't cut corners at West Point. Pillars of the company in order: our horses, our partners, and the company. So we gave him the time, bringing him back, and I like this horse a lot. I know he's not, or hasn't been per se, a grade 1 caliber horse, but he's fast, and he has got heart. This horse is a really tough competitor. I'm happy to see him back in the entry box.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, it's been a while on those voided claims, but believe he's not in for a tag, and I think that's due to high side. I think you get I forget what the official time frame is. If you're coming off a layoff, you get to go
6 months. I think it's 6 months. I think it's 180
sounds familiar,
days.
but I think it's nice to be able to, it's nice to have that from ownership standpoint of, you're coming off the layoff, and recent memory, you'd see a lot of horses just drop like a rock coming off a layoff just because you're trying to get them in a competitive spot. But here you can put them with their friends, put them where they belong, and know that no matter what, after the race, they're coming back to your barn and you still have them. So, but it's a tough field, especially coming off a layoff. That's just my one concern. Maybe he needs to race, but in the back of my head, even if he does, I know that, at least we won't lose him to the claim box. But like you said, he's just a tough horse. He always runs hard. And he's been all over the place too. And, he's shown he can run well anywhere. So I'm excited to get him back here in the entry box and get rolling again.
Definitely. And kind of neat too. I'm not sure how many horses of ours that Keith Asmussen has ridden, let alone a horse trained by his dad, Steve. So it is neat having a father-son trainer jockey combo lining up with our good buddy Speaking of the Devil. Good luck to him. Drew well too. I'm glad he's outside, and we'll all be tuned in to Oaklawn Park on Friday as their March ramps up. Second half of March already, which is unbelievable how fast time has flown by. We have also got a Doolgaroux racing gang. That horse in oh, here we go. Good. I'm I could have sworn I saved the PPs. I watched his first race like all of you did, and the partners that are my guys and gals. I remember texting them immediately after his race just a couple of weeks ago on March 8th. I'm I am betting this horse next time he runs. Just nothing went right for him. He can run. He's got some ability. He's a Louisiana bred. And I'm still going to bet tomorrow afternoon at Fairgrounds in this Lawbred Maine Special Weight at 1.70 miles. I will say, though, Joe, this field just in terms of potential, looks deeper to my eyes than the race that he's coming out of. I thought that was a pretty hungry field on paper. You know, Cherie's got a pretty pricey Louisiana bred by Uncle Mo. There's a few horses that our guy faced first out, and it's a bigger field. What are your thoughts with Doolgaroux as far as him going second time out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of all relative with the Louisiana bred fields. It is a deep field, and going 2 turns, I wish he hadn't drawn the rail again, because I think that was the biggest hindrance after he broke slow, was being at the rail and getting a little intimidated. I do like, just as a handicapper, I like when trainers will put a horse like after a race like that right back in the entry box less than 2 weeks later. It tells me that he bounced out of the race, no worse for the wear. So I like that. I think that's a confident move by Greg Foley. He's got to get out of the gate better and get into a better spot early on. Obviously, going 2 turns, he's not going to be run off his feet. He's going to have a little bit more time to get into a rhythm, hopefully in the mid-pack spot, hoping for a dry track as well, because I think the slop was another variable to throw at a first-time starter that didn't help him. So yeah, I want to see him break well this time and get into a good spot early, and then we'll see what we have. But I do like to stretch out, and I do like them coming back quickly off of that last race, as opposed to throwing him on the shelf and saying, oh, there's got to be an excuse. No, he bounced out fine. Let's try it again.
Definitely. Loire, I would expect some improvement out of him. Cherie, not really. I mean, she can win first out, but she's got that old school work them up and get that steady improvement race after race. So I would imagine in a wet track, sloppy sealed track for Loire in his first start, much like our guy Doolgaroux. Forecast for Friday, I was looking at the weather forecast for NOLA. Didn't look great. I guess scattered thunderstorms. I don't check the weather there every day, so maybe that's just kind of the norm for this time of the year. But yeah, like Joe said, hopefully a dry track for our pal Doolgaroux, named after the man that will be calling him, the great John G. Dooley, St. John's grad and native of Staten Island. And we already gave John Dooley his praises, the three of us, the last time we were on together with Doolgaroux Racing. So we'll skip that, but good luck. A good guy calling the race, and hopefully a very good lawbred maiden when it's all said and done. Let's bounce over, guys. Let's go to Turfway. You've got two potential Derby preps, and likely at least a couple of future Kentucky Derby starters, probably more than a couple, running between the Jeff Ruby stakes race, spelled Steaks, at Turfway, and the Louisiana Derby, which is an excellent field, and we'll talk about that race as well. So two Derby preps on the week, but way back, because it's a long, long day with, I mean, you talk about big fields at Turfway Park, which is pretty much the norm. There's a lot of horses entered. We start the day, guys, at 1:45 Eastern, 70K maiden special weight, going a mile. Much like Sands of War tomorrow night at Turfway, we are going to see, Tommy, if Zverev can transfer his okay solid form. I'm never going to lie on this show. I'm never going to lie in general. I'm always going to be honest. I was underwhelmed with his two races at Fairgrounds this winter on the grass. Could be a different ball game, though, my friend Tommy, because he's off a little bit of a layoff, and off that pedigree, I'll be surprised if he doesn't really like racing on that synthetic track at Turfway.
Yeah, I'm excited. We get an early race at Turfway normally. I think you mentioned earlier today, we always have to deal with these late post times there, so it's nice to get, we get one in the first, and it's not at 6 o'clock at night, it's middle afternoon. But I really
like. Are you maybe going up?
I may.
For
undecided.
I mean, Saturday's a big day. Dude, if I was close, lived close by you, we would definitely go and stay the whole day.
It's a great card, and I was looking at it. Obviously, start with Zverev. If you're just going down, it was just great horse, great race. Just about every race you look at. But I really like Zverev here. I love getting Jose up. Obviously, Cherie rides Jose a lot, and they have a good thing going. And I'm glad that we get a piece of it here. And it's not often you get one of the Ortiz brothers at or even both of them at Turfway Park. So when you get that opportunity, it's one you need to jump on. So I'm happy we get that, and I'm looking for a step forward here off these fairgrounds races, like you said. That's a tough turf course because it's lots gone on down that turf course the last few years. So some horses take to it, some don't. Maybe he didn't. Zverev didn't like it a whole lot. So we kind of get I don't want to call it a blank slate, but a new, maybe a fresh Zverev,
Yep.
a little bit of a rest here on this poly up at Turfway.
Yeah, I know how you're viewing it. Like it's not his
Yeah.
first start, but I kind of view it as like a whole new ball game for him. And I like such a big, I mean, this is a big, strapping, powerful Colt by Oscar performance. It's kind of like the idea. Sure, he gave him a little bit of a breather. He was going to run about a week ago, maybe a little over a week ago, and the race was moved to the dirt at Fairgrounds. So I'm with you wholeheartedly. Field's pretty solid though. I mean, you got a Godolphin horse in here by Frosted who's run pretty well, and no reason to think off that pedigree and those good figures that horse, Frost Mountain, wouldn't stretch out and like to go long. But all in all, good spot for Zverev. Good luck to him. He's got me, guys. Bet him first out. He had that crazy trip. I really bet him at Keeneland, and of course, if you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have luck at all. That's when the rider, the jockey inside, the rein snapped and it carried us to the outer rail. But just hoping he can improve a little bit off those fairgrounds turf races. I did not do any other work on this card, minus, guys, our race in the first and then jumping. Yeah, Tommy, if you're not doing anything Saturday, this I think I'm going to be disappointed if you don't make the trip up there, man. I mean, it's just
Wow, the
one
pressure's on.
state. It is on, man. Dude, if it was closer, I would definitely come and join you.
No time for you to get on a
Tommy.
plane, man. You can come up and join me.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go that bad, but it's easier said than done. But I will be, if you go, I will be there in spirit. You can text me some video and pictures. So what about it, Joe? We've got our first Derby prep that we're going to talk about. I don't even like calling this race a Derby prep, although it will yield at least one Kentucky Derby starter.
Or winner. We've had before.
Right, that is true. I mean, Animal Kingdom did come out of this race for sure, without a doubt. A lot of forgettable horses, with all due respect, and big price long shots on Derby Day. Where do you start, Joe? I mean, talk to me here with this group.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the Clement horse. I like Otello a little bit. I think the waters were a little too deep for him in the Holy Bowl last time. He's got the kind of pedigree that you think could lend itself to synthetic track. He's the right horse for me. Endlessly obviously has the biggest figure from Michael McCarthy winning the El Camino Real Derby last time. So he'll probably be a top contender. We've talked about Agate Road on this podcast before. None of us are really big fans, but what does he really have to beat in this race? And he's run well on multiple surfaces. The other one I was looking at, I don't know if he's going to be a synthetic type, but the Bill Morey horse, Lucky Jeremy, who was third last time out in the Sunland Derby. I think that horse has had a nice little progression, might be ready for a step forward. And I think is bred to get the mile and an eighth, plus being out of a War Chant mare. But yeah, like I think you're saying, like this is one of those races that shouldn't have Derby points, I don't think. And I get the tradition, like usually, Turfway's had a Derby prep, but I just think, with the quality of the field and it being on the synth, it doesn't strike me as a real productive Derby race, even though, as you guys said, Animal Kingdom's come out of it to win. It's just, it's not an exciting group for me, at least, although it is a good card overall.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. I mean, you've got two for Todd in there, Agate Road. I'm a noted fan. I don't know what happened in the Kitten's Joy. He just did not lift a hoof, but he's a stakes winner on turf and dirt. We'll see how he does on the synth. And then, Mike and Todd also, he's on the also eligible list. They have Triple Espresso, who's also entered in the Louisiana Derby, a race we will talk about in just a second. Again, going back to the forecast on Friday, it might be a little touch and go just in terms of the weather in New Orleans. I would not be upset, guys, if it rained and they were off the turf at least for a portion, or maybe some of the early races, or maybe some of the turf sprints on that Saturday card with our OG sort of like our not spirit animal, but he's definitely like a 1-1A, like 1-2 punch with Jaxon Traveler. We've got our 6-year-old Lawbred and SWOT Analysis, who's just been another, old school West Point OG warrior. We tried him on the turf last time. Here's the thing, Joe. And I was thinking about the podcast you, Tom, Bellhouse, and Aaron have done in terms of the condition books. It just gets tough finding races for a horse like this at this stage of the game. So it wouldn't hurt my feelings. Again, my long spiel. I hope they move the race to the main track. I'd be a lot happier if SWAT was able to run on the dirt.
Yeah, no, and I actually confirmed. I spoke to Mark Cassidy this morning. He's only going to run if the race comes off the grass. Especially after last time, they're not going to try him on turf again. But like you said, he was pointing to actually an open allowance optional claimer on Friday, and the race didn't fill. So this is, the only other spot within that time frame. Just put him in here and pray the race comes off the grass.
It's early. Again, it might rain. It might rain Saturday or Friday rather at Fairgrounds. I don't want it to rain on their big day. I'm not rooting for that. But if it comes off, great. We'll be tuned in for SWOT Analysis, who's just a cool horse. Along those lines, gang, how about, and just talking about rain, Fairgrounds turf course, lot of, maybe initial disappointment when they hit the wire. But oftentimes you go back, you watch a race, you think about things and try to put a race and a horse's effort in perspective. I feel a lot better than my maybe knee-jerk reaction was regarding Northern Invader Tommy coming out of his 2 other than allowance last Saturday at Fairgrounds. And it sounds like he's going to get a rider change at his next start in Kentucky. And I'll tell you, man, that race came up really fast on Bayer and Ragozin too.
Yeah, I'm excited to get him up here back to Kentucky. Again, Fairgrounds, it's a tough place to run. People always kind of forget about it, but that stretch down there is so long, and talent down there. Because most people think of Gulfstream really, or somewhere out west, but people forget about Fairgrounds. It's a tough place to win at. So, yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I'm excited to get him up to Keeneland in Kentucky and get him back to his winning ways.
Yeah, he's one of I love all our horses and you get attached to all of them, but he's truly one of my favorite horses in the stable. We know he's better than that 4th place finish. So again, many positives to take forward, and he'll be that much better next time out. Fingers crossed it's on a firmer turf course. Moving on to the Louisiana Derby. Joe, I'll start with you. I definitely want your take too, Tommy. Joe, with Rail Talk, your other podcast, I know you're probably pretty locked into the 3-year-old picture and just the Derby preps. And considering it's also Saturday, it'll be March 23rd. We're not all that far out from the last round of preps, and of course, the first Saturday in May. As I send it over to you, my take on this Louisiana Derby is I think the Risen Star and this race have featured the two best fields, deepest fields, toughest fields of 3-year-olds regarding any of the prep races or any circuit throughout the country. I think this is a great rendition of the La Derby. I really do.
Yeah, well, and again, it's another great card too, full fields. This is an interesting race because, unlike the Risen Star, which looked like it had a ton of speed on paper, there really is not that much early foot in here. But I think that, people are going to see that. There's a long run to the first turn. I don't think that they're going to let Track Phantom just clear in here, because I think if he gets loose, he's very dangerous and is the horse to beat. But I expect some other riders to be a bit more aggressive because they see the race on paper just like we see the race. Antiquarian, I expect Johnny V to have him forwardly placed. I think Hall of Fame got a little bit of a tentative ride last time and it cost him. So I expect Ricardo Santana to be more aggressive with him. He's the one I lean towards. I mean, it depends on the price. To me, he's one of those horses who could be anywhere from 5-2 to like 8-1. Obviously, I would lean more heavily towards him if he's a bigger price. But yeah, this is the kind of race that if you like a closer, I think you might want to just play them underneath, just because it just doesn't seem like there's going to be that many people to challenge Track Phantom on the front end. So I'm going to play this race to stay together for the most part, maybe throw in like a Real Men Violin or somebody like that underneath, because I think he might get a little bit lost on the board. Honor Marie, same thing. But I lean toward Hall of Fame. I'm hoping he gets a much easier trip of it this time, hoping he gets a dry track. Obviously, a lot of expectations with him being a $1.4 million gun runner. But yeah, this is the kind of race that'll be interesting tactically to see if they challenge Track Phantom early or just let him go and hope he can't get the distance.
Yeah, it's a terrible or a very tough post for Track Phantom. But again, Tommy, as Joe said, mile and 3/16, they've got a lengthy run before they hit that first turn. It does look, Tommy, like Steve Asmussen, I mean, is going into this thing holding a couple of aces. But again, both those horses are going to have to be good. The gun runner way better than he was last time out in the slop, and Track Phantom's going to have to do it from post 12. But the competition runs deep. I mean, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on this race. Like you guys said, it's such a deep race. You can more or less make a case for just about anybody. There's a decent bit of speed, like you guys were talking about. It would be interesting to see if anyone really wants to let Track Phantom clear everybody and just go by himself in the lead. I don't think that's going to happen, but I thought he ran a great race last out, and on paper he looks like a real tough beat. But Joe mentioned this horse, and I think I'm landing on this horse, Antiquarian, whoever you say his name for Pletcher. This horse, think you had a circle on under PPs. Ran second to Conquest Warrior on debut, comes back, breaks his maiden at Fairgrounds, where it looked like Todd sent him there with a path maybe to this race. You can see where his training pattern, and then pops up at Fairgrounds and heads right back home. So, and I'm hoping this horse we can get a little bit of a price. Obviously, it may sound insane me picking a horse coming off a maiden win in the Law Derby, but I mean, Todd and Johnny V, if you can get a price on him, it's just about no one better that you can have teamed up with the horse. So that's kind of the horse that I ended up on. Hall of Fame was one I spent a lot of time looking at too. Obviously, that huge maiden win, which is the monster number, winning by 10, then doesn't really fire the slop and the Risen Star. So you can either draw a line through that and say, all right, try again, or you can use that and chuck the horse and say maybe that maiden win just came back really fast and maybe he's in some deep waters. But this field is just, I mean, whoever you end up on, I mean, they have a shot. There's not a lot of horses here where you can look at them and just chuck them. Except maybe.
Yeah, except Awesome Ruda.
Yeah,
I'm curious. Dude, what I was almost going to tweet
one.
that. And again, yeah, not looking to take shots against anybody, but I mean, this horse was how many? I don't care if you're looking at a third race on a Wednesday or a Tuesday at Mahoning Valley. I mean, how many horses do you see go off at even above 150 to 1?
Really?
That seems pretty infrequent.
And,
I mean, this horse could be 500 to 1 in this field.
You know what? Funny thing is, horse ended up beat Hall of Fame and Real Men Violin in the Risen Star, which is the most absurd part. And then if you like either of those horses, I mean, they're going to be much shorter prices in this spot. But obviously, I just couldn't believe when I saw those odds come out, and I was like, "Are you serious?
Crazy, yeah,
3.5, like unbelievable,
nuts, absolutely nuts." So yeah, stack card at Fairgrounds. Here's to them having a huge day, a huge handle, and great racing as well. We've got one more race. We've got a Western Command guys, wishing him good luck on Sunday. He's running pretty late in the day, right? I think it's race number 8. Let me fly over and see here. Yeah, he's in race number 8. Another way other than going 5.5 furlongs. He's got the inside post. Kind of feels, I don't know, Joe, like he runs almost the same race every time. Maybe not where he finishes, but he's kind of like one paced and just kind of stays with no real punch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those horses that I think we kind of underestimated him early on. He had that maiden 30 win. He had the 30 claimer win. So he definitely is better than we initially thought, but it's just how many times is he going to go through this and try this at one other than condition and not break through? It's been a little frustrating. I'm hoping with the rail, they'll be at least aggressive with him and have him in a forward spot early. But yeah, I mean, he's had his chances so far, try to break through his condition.
Definitely might be a horse that if things don't work out on Sunday late in that card, that we look for maybe a 3 lifetime claimer for him over the spring in Kentucky. That might make some sense, just a little bit of class relief. So as we get ready to wrap up here, gang, we don't have a lot left. Again, a mighty thanks from all of us, the entire team here at West Point, to everybody that has bought one of the half a dozen 2-year-olds we came away with. It's an exciting time of the year. I mean, I think, guys, like Joe, our yearlings from August, September, and there were a couple out of the Keeneland October sale. You've got that army of horses, and now you're adding another 6 pieces of the puzzle. It's it's easy to get excited, and just I find myself daydreaming a bit about what's coming up in the future. I mean, really thinking about, of course, Saratoga and Del Mar and beyond. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're loaded. It seems like with the yearlings turn 2 and now the 2-year-olds coming to join the team. This is my first full year with through the sales cycle with West Point. So these are the yearlings that I remember us buying, that I've sold pieces of, turning 2. So it's nice, like, now to be familiar with the whole 2-year-old roster. And just honestly, just speaking candidly, it is a great group of horses. Like, there's been very few that have had issues or anything that we had to stop on, and even the ones that did, mostly very minor things. So yeah, I'm really excited. I can't wait for 2-year-old racing to start. We're only a couple weeks away from Keeneland, so it's right around the corner. And yeah, like, looking at the group of horses we got, how can you not be pumped?
Yeah, super amped. And before let me come back on video here. Before we know it, Tommy, it'll be the OBS April sale. And the really great part of that sale, aside from the length of the catalog, and even David and Gordo was talking about the quality that's focused in on that sale, especially with no Gulfstream sale, no phasing sale anymore at Gulfstream Park. I'm already like super amped, and I was just in Ocala couple of weeks before the March sale, like our 2-year-old showcase, to check in on all the babies and all the new additions from the March and April sale. I mean, that's going to be right around the block. So exciting times and great times ahead for us as a stable.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to get back down there for April OBS, and then, like you mentioned, seeing all the 2-year-olds, seeing everybody, and just getting them together. And then, and it's right there, right around that springtime where you get Keeneland going on, get first Saturday of May right coming up. So I mean, it's almost like Christmas for us horse racing folks. So it's a really exciting time, and I can't wait for it.
Today's the first full day of spring today. So we're
on our that. Look at that.
Yeah. Yep. Well, congrats, guys. I know, again, living in South Florida, every day kind of feels like the first day of spring. Although last couple of days it was pretty hot. It felt like got hot a little too quick. But no, I always, from growing up on Long Island, man, like the Gotham to the Wood, and then with the official Gotham, to me was always like the first official day of spring, even though that isn't really true. So no, I'm sure you guys are very excited. And look, speaking of spring and April, I was going over not only what we might have next weekend down at Gulfstream Park, because it's Florida Derby Day, and that's shaping up as a really interesting race with Conquest Warrior and Fierceness, Hades, and maybe you get a little door knock too. Although my gut, and again, I don't know anything, but my gut says they probably go to the Bluegrass with that horse. That's just the vibe I personally have. But it'll be a great day. We'll have Cortez, Co-Invest, maybe the 3-year-old debut of Carson's Run, which would be amazing. And guys, I was looking over like the Keeneland, like potential starters for Keeneland. I think it's safe to say, as a company, and you're talking 3 decades plus now as a stable, West Point has never had the kind of emphasis and firepower that we have coming up in April, Tommy, in your neck of the woods, from integration to pretty much a ton of other horses.
Yeah. It's, I usually, when I go to bed, I'm thinking about it. I just get so excited about making the drive out to Keeneland, seeing all these horses that were running in these huge Great Estates wins that, people dream about winning at opening weekend at Keeneland. Like you said, integration. We'll see Vava in the Madison. and I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch.
Cooge, yeah, Cugino's supposed to run in the Transylvania. Yeah.
The Dona.
Yeah, it's like it's like the best time of year. I get giddy thinking about it. It's just gonna be so awesome to get to Keeneland's, see all the partners, win a couple great stakes races while we're there. Maybe run the table while we're at it, I guess. Why not?
Yeah, now you're talking.
Exactly. But it's really, really awesome time of year, and you can't beat Keeneland opening day. It's one of the best.
Well, Joe, you and I will be watching it on TV. Once again, we'll be there in spirit. Tommy, you'll have to give us an update if you do make it out to Turfway on Saturday. And I hope for you,
sure,
Joe, especially now that it is spring, I hope you get a trip to the Big A, my friend, in the very near future.
Coming. I got to renew my license anyway, so it's coming regardless of whether or not we got a horse running. But yeah, I think April will be a really fun time here in New York as well.
All right. Well, we'll sign off. We could keep going, everybody, but we've got things to do. We're sure you have things to do. A little left on the Spun to Run, little left on the Cajun Breeze. For Joe, Tommy, and myself, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next time here on the West Point Podcast.